Good morning. This is Talking Devils, the leading independent Manchester United podcast. I'm your host, Wayne Barton, joined by Manchester United legend Paul Parker to talk over quite a mixed week at Manchester United. How are you doing, Paul? How was your weekend?
I'm fine, thank you, Wayne. Weekend was okay. Saturday, what did I do Saturday? I'm trying to think, did I go to a game? I've just been to so many matches lately. Oh no, I didn't as it goes. I did actually go to a game. I went to a game in Lincolnshire. I think it was like step five, where I watched the game and where I was doing a Q&A after. It was the final day of their season and their sponsor had helped them and they just had a big event on that day. So it was quite an enjoyable day, really. My first real time in Lincolnshire. I never realised how difficult a place it is to get to from Essex.
Yeah, the East can be quite tricky with its accessibility. Norfolk and Lincolnshire is the forgotten areas of England.
Yeah.
If you're watching live on YouTube or Facebook, feel free to get your questions and comments in. If you're watching the replay, say hello. Do feel free to comment, do reply. If you're listening back on the audio podcast, be sure to subscribe and leave a review on the platform you are listening on. First of all, I posted a little tweet yesterday saying, win or lose, United are still sort of on par for expectation this season, and winning one cup and getting to a couple of semi-finals and a European quarter-final and Champions League qualification and playing good football with a manager who's got the strength of the club behind him. Seemed like a pretty good season, but then Twitter being Twitter, I got a load of abuse. Fans like you are the reason why we're accepting mediocrity. So I'm just offering my apology because obviously I'm the reason why we've not won a league title for 10 years. And, I will try to be better in future with my standards and my accepting of standards and clearly my unreasonable expectations for the manager, which extend, Paul, to being fairly pleased this morning, although I was fairly rejected on Thursday night, which we'll get to in due course. But we'll talk about Brighton first of all. Game that finished 0-0. Solly March, who played well in the game after recovering from a knock early on, he missed his penalty. Lindelof scored. United were in the final, and that's basically the story of the game. But if you want to dive a little bit deeper into it, which we are obviously going to do, it felt like a game of patches. Brighton started both halves well. United rode a few storms, created a fair few chances, all openings themselves. Crucially, they defended very well. The Wembley pitch made it quite difficult for both teams to play their natural game, like it always does. So they sort of came in fits and flowed like that. It's difficult to say that either side deserved to win or lose. It's the worst way to lose a semi-final, I suppose, on penalties like that. And Brighton can certainly feel like they deserved something from it, and United, I don't think, deserved to lose the game. So a weird one, Paul. All that matters is getting to the final, and for United to win a penalty shootout after the sort of recent cursed look in it is obviously a good thing. But what did you make of the game itself?
I mean, it wasn't great, to be perfectly honest. Like you said, you used the word patches, and I think that's what it was. There was moments where United looked like the team that everyone were expecting to see, really. And then Brighton had their bits. I mean, they are a very good side, to be fair. When you watch them and you look how much it costs to assemble that side, you think they're very good, and they've been consistent all season, to be perfectly honest. And the one thing for them is that they deserve the opportunity to play in Europe, without a shadow of a doubt, for next season. And they'd mostly go and do very well in the way they play. But for United, there were quite a lot of patches. I thought the extra time bit was all about Manchester United. I thought they were the better side in extra time, to be perfectly honest. David May was there with me as well, and he actually agreed with me as well, which is a rarity because sometimes Maisie can be more cynical than me. But in that sense, I mean, there was I don't know, there was bits could be critical, but after what happened on Thursday, I don't want to be too critical because it was a step forward. For me, what I saw was the bit that I enjoyed most was the defence, really defending in that sense. It was a lot better. Wan-Bissaka, I thought, was excellent.
Yeah.
Especially in the second half as well. He made two marauding runs, and where before he'd made marauding runs before Ten Hag, and it was like it was kind of, it was off the cuff, and but he was more controlled about what he was going to do once he got himself out of trouble. He knew what he was going to do. He was so in control of himself, and Dalot done well, but he overcovered a hell of a lot in that first half. Especially that first half, he was virtually filling a gap which Luke Shaw was leaving, because Luke had pushed in further to get tighter rather than keeping it a flat back four. Luke decided, and off his own head, which I quite liked in a way, because he made the right decision. He went in there and become an extra man in that midfield to stop Brighton having a lot of the ball.
Yeah.
And he took it upon himself, Dalot, to come in. And in the end, he was leaving Solly March quite a lot of room on that right-hand side. And it was a bit worrying because, as you said, he's a very good player. But it looked better. I thought Lindelof and Luke Shaw were excellent as a pairing. The way the ball moved quicker from the back with it at their feet, the way they squeezed up and they was there, and they pushed on the midfield players to allow them to compete with Brighton midfield. It was a lot better than what it was on Thursday evening. And it's what Manchester United should have been doing on Thursday evening. Luke Shaw being on the bench didn't make any sense at all. It was madness for Luke to be on the bench. If he's fit enough to sit on the bench, he's fit enough to start the game. If there's an issue, start him and take him off. You bring someone on, you're asking, and the time he come on, you're asking themselves to extend themselves more than what they would do when they can build themselves slowly into a game. So that didn't make any sense. And there has been, on his last few weeks, quite a few occasions I've questioned the substitutions, that he's gone and made.
Yeah, I did yesterday, to be fair, when he brought off Wan-Bissaka in extra time and Fernandes, with Fernandes being one of our regular penalty takers. And I was concerned about, Mitoma, because Wan-Bissaka, like I said, had played magnificently against him, and then Dalot switching. To be fair, Dalot did a good job as well on both sides.
I will say that, Wayne, by the way. Sorry, I was just sitting there, and when that was going on, there was a game stopped, and I saw Wan-Bissaka walk to Ten Hag, and he started talking, and then I saw Ten Hag turn around, look at the bench, move his hands, and then next thing I know, I saw Malacia get up. So I turned around and I looked at Jaap Stam, and Jaap Stam's looked at me, and he just kind of gone, must be injured. And that's what I thought as well. And within 5 minutes, that's when the substitution happens. So Wan-Bissaka come off because he was feeling something, I think. Right. Because he was having a conversation, and that's why that happened. Because it made no sense at all to take off Wan-Bissaka. And I think everyone knew that. So there would have been a lot of people when that happened would have been a little bit worried, because they'd seen that Wan-Bissaka was one of the few fullbacks in this country. I know a fullback who 40 miles away from Manchester who had a torrid 3 games against Mitoma, and Wan-Bissaka had him in his pocket, and he come out of his shell once Wan-Bissaka would come off. He suddenly found freedom.
Yeah, not enough though. And United are in the final. Penalties. De Gea still. I mean, he's saved a couple since Villarreal. I'm sure he saved the first one, didn't he? After that this season, or last season, I should say. But didn't save another one in the shootout. But thankfully, it comes right down to sudden death. What is it, Paul, about United that you can't even do a penalty shootout in the regulation 5? It has to go all the way to sudden death, and you have to run through that lottery as well. I mean, United's penalties were perfect, and that shows you. I mean, we've questioned the nerve of some of these players, and that's going to be something where we praise them really, because the penalties were great.
They were. Just to be honest, I was with someone, so they looked at me and they kind of said, "Who's going to take the penalties?" And I'm just going to look now. Just got it on my phone, and I put it down. I put it on a message on my phone, put it in there so I wouldn't miss it, and I kind of. What I put down, I assumed I went Luke Shaw, Rashford, Weghorst, and I went Casemiro, and I didn't know the other one. The fifth one I didn't know. And then when it started, I was completely wrong, as you know. Casemiro took the first one. I thought Luke Shaw would have taken one because, as we know, Luke Shaw with his left foot, it's like a bit of a wand in a way. The way, very, very good and it's powerful as being very technical. And Luke Shaw never took one in the first five, which I found very, very. I thought the way Luke Shaw sells himself is all about confidence, but I think when it comes to the penalties, why wasn't now? I was very, very surprised. I was really surprised that Lindelof was going up to take the one to go and win the game. I was really surprised, but I was really pleased with Lindelof. And another thing, which David May agreed with me, and I turned around and I talked about Lindelof. He thinks the same about Lindelof as what I do. I think he's been caught up in a storm and he's taken the brunt of it as well when he should never have been anywhere near it. Because, on a few occasions I've seen him represent his country, he's been excellent. He is a leader in the way he plays, and people should notice that. You watch him when he's playing, the way he communicates with people. But every time I've seen him play, again, I'm saying this, I think I said it from last week or whatever, when he's coming and been called upon, he has delivered. He has not moaned, he has not sulked, he's gone out there and given everything, and he's not just gone out and played his game, he's gone out and helped people with their game as well by going on and taking the ball on. And I just think he now needs to be playing. If he's going to, in my opinion, he's got to look at Luke Shaw at this moment playing on that left side. Lindelof has to be playing every game on that right side until such time Varane comes back in, and then he can decide if he wants to put Luke back where he is, and go from there really, and play Lindelof in that left-hand side. He already knows. We've already seen that he doesn't want Harry Maguire on the left-hand side because Lindelof played there. So he tried to give Harry the best possible chance of playing on his stronger side. So now he's made some incredible decisions. He's had difficult bits he's had to deal with as a Manchester United manager. A lot of it initially was taken out of his hands, I think, but he's come back strong and gone and dealt with them. So I think now he's got to deal with this big one now and make a valid point now that he is not comfortable as far as, and as a hell of a lot of people are in the same position, that Harry Maguire does not feel anyone with confidence when he plays.
Yeah, it's a tough one. We'll get to that in a little more. But yeah, a little more praise for Lindelof while we're talking about him, because I've, on this podcast, I've been critical of him as well. I think perhaps the biggest tribute we can give him is, or the biggest accolade or compliment, is that when we're talking about it, he's fitting to either side of centre off, and he's done it without complaining and without excuse. Do you know what I mean? Like, we looked at players and said, like, maybe Maguire wasn't playing well because he was on the left, maybe he wasn't playing well because he's on the right, all that sort of stuff. You're looking for players and an excuse, and Lindelof hasn't had that luxury, but he's come in this season when needed on either side of that centre off slot, and he's done great. And you would presume that his form, touch wood, that he stays fit, because we know how erratic our fitness problems can be at the back. That he stays in there. A couple of comments from Robbie. Good morning, mate. Hope you're all right. Says we definitely got away with one yesterday, but we have another final possibly up to us to stop a treble. I think tonight has to leave Lindelof and Shaw there until Varane's back. Lindelof's a different player when Maguire's not there. All right, so 2 cup finals. Obviously, we've been on the same page with Tenor pretty much since the turn of the year that he's close to meeting expectations or exceeding them. And obviously, success in a cup final, in FA Cup final, and Champions League football is going to be a pretty huge success for a first season. I think we're both agreed with that. European football was meant to be the gateway, the sort of safety cushion for Champions League qualification. And after beating Barcelona, United should have expected they could have taken on anyone. It is Sevilla's competition. They tend to come alive, but still, I think United, I don't want to say made things easy for them, because I don't think that's fair, because they put on a good show, but I think that they made things inviting for them with the way that they set up. And we were talking about this, Paul. We kind of exchanged messages about this, and I've talked about this on social platforms as well. I don't really feel comfortable, and we have talked about this before. Actually, we have talked when it gets to a point, with some players when we were saying about Mata and he was looking a little bit leggy and stuff like that. You don't want to hang out players to dry when they're just the time has come for them to move on, and to that end, you would sort of put it at the manager's door and say, well, anyone could have sort of made that estimation before the game that Harry Maguire starting is going to mean that you're retreating 15 yards, and you don't need to be doing that in a European game when you need to score the first goal, or when you need to take control of it, when you need to take the initiative, and maybe bring him on later on if you're defending a comfortable advantage. But we didn't do that, and from that moment we were. We're chasing. I mean, let's be right. I mean, it's not like De Gea covered himself in glory. A couple of big mistakes from him as well. But the first goal was basically everything that could go wrong did go wrong. I don't want to harp on too much about this because we've bounced back. We've got a result, but it's something that happened in the last week, so we have to cover it. It's one of those terrible European nights, Paul. It was. Everything that could go wrong did go wrong. If you were looking around the pitch for answers from players to step up, hoping for a surprise, you didn't get it because you saw once again that there's a level that these players can't get to, or a level of where the platform of Manchester United intimidates that player, whoever it may be who we're talking about. You can pick a handful, and that this was a step too far for them. It doesn't give an excuse, but then again, you look at the manager and think, this is where he needs to improve as well. His selection, he still got it wrong on the night. What did you make of it? Without wanting to bang on too much about it, is nearly a week ago now. But what did you make of it?
Well, I'm not going to be different to anyone else. I don't really know what to say that hasn't been said already. To be perfectly honest, it was loads. I mean, I was doing what I was doing at Wembley yesterday, and just everyone you speak to just kind of were there, and all they want to do was just talk about really how embarrassed they were with their players. To be perfectly honest, with the United players, how embarrassed they were by what they went about, how they went about it. Everyone quite a few did mention Anthony and said, that he was one of the few that was having a go. He never stopped in the way he is, and he has got that bit about him. But it was poor. There was nothing there. No one was guiding anything. A lot of players just switched off, and I can't really find anything without being too cutting. And I can't do that. I personally can't do that now because the moment's gone. There was what happened yesterday. United have got over that by stumbling across and getting themselves into another final. Now there's an opportunity to go from now until the end of season with better performances and more honest performances from everyone, and then see what happens then. Because everyone's doing is talking about next season at the moment. Thank goodness there's a few bits. There's still a Champions League spot to seal, which could be done on Thursday, and there's an FA Cup. Otherwise, that's all people will be talking about, and a lot of people would be getting wound up regarding the situation with the owners. That people want that put to bed so United can start the summer in the right position to go out and get players sorted out weeks, months before the season starts, so they can turn up on the first day of pre-season rather than generally odds and bods turning up in the final week or one game in, and when there's no organisation. So that's what that's what the club want. I think the supporters want. But I think now what's happened in Spain has to be put to bed now and really forgotten about. I mean, I will say one thing though about the first goal. And as you know, I am a fan of David De Gea. I know it's coming to that point, but I still look at him as a goalkeeper first, and a great striker and a great distributor of the ball second, because that's the better combination for me as a goalkeeper, rather than worrying about his great. Alisson is supposed to be the best goalkeeper in the world. Saw what he done in the weekend. He cost Liverpool a goal by trying to play out a pass and all that. Goalkeepers will make mistakes, the same as everyone else. The problem is their mistake can create an incredible opportunity, or it could cost the team a goal, and they get slaughtered for it, and they're judged off of that rather than the saves. David De Gea made some great saves yesterday, must say, to keep United in the game, but no one will talk about that. They'll wait for his next mistake to slaughter him. But I look at that first goal, because there was an identical. It followed on the following day, wasn't it? Last month, the Arsenal game.
Yeah.
But exactly the same with Ramsdale. Ramsdale didn't put enough meat on the bone with his pass. David De Gea, there was enough meat on the bone. The only thing wrong that he done was he made a poor decision. Harry Maguire has asked for the ball. Has he done that because of his ego? But everything was, I want the ball. David De Gea put enough weight on it. And if that had been a more correct centre-half, if that had been a Varane, if that had been a Martinez or a Martinez, whatever you want to call him, if that had been a Van Dijk, they would have assessed that situation. They would have let the ball run across their body, and then they would have broken down that closing down. They would have broken it down. By the three of them would have been out of the game. Wan-Bissaka would have strolled on to be able to foray forward, and then the ball would have been given to him. He decided that he wanted to try and pass it through a player. In other words, he panicked. He's asked for the ball, didn't really want it, as I see it, but he's got it, and he totally had no picture in his head at all what he was going to do next. David De Gea saw the picture, delivered the ball with the right weight on it, and he didn't do his bit at the end. So it was both their faults. But it wasn't David De Gea saying, what a bad ball. It was the right ball, but it was a poor decision at that given time to give it to that player in particular.
Yeah. Maguire afterwards, in reaction to the goal, I think he's mouthing off at De Gea saying better communication or something like that, words or angry gestures to that effect.
So Wayne, Harry Maguire said that.
He did the thing, which.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't want to go too far on that, but that, again, I scrutinise. I watch him every time I see him playing. I watch him. I watch the way he plays, and he gets the ball and he dilly dallies, and then he gives it backward because it is generally he hooks it when he kicks the ball. He hooks it backwards, and then he throws his arms up at somebody because they weren't doing that. Every time someone runs in behind the team, he's always the last man. All he does is gets his arms up. He's a modern day Tony Adams, but nowhere near the level of Tony Adams. Arms up, and then he's looking at the assistant referee going, finding excuses, and it's just all excuses. At the end of it, it was both their fault. When he talks about communication, he's asked for the ball because he's given the ball because David De Gea believes he's seen the picture. Now, we was told during my time is that when Eric Cantona asks for the ball, you give it to him. And unless he's got someone standing on his head or actually standing on both his feet, you're going to give Eric the ball because you believe that Eric knows the picture. All you've got to make sure is that you give him the correct ball in the sense of what weight you're going to put on it, and Eric will do the rest. If it didn't work out, Eric will take responsibility because he's asked for that ball. You didn't really want Eric taking responsibility because that meant he was having to try and get the ball back. And as we all know, Eric wasn't very, very good at getting the ball back off of people.
And you've got to say as well, I mean, I don't want to lump in on a single player. I think you could argue the case, not that we're going to, but you could argue the case that Thursday was sort of career defining for 3 or 4, or at least 2 players. And that it becomes difficult to argue a case for them playing into next season, no matter what they do from now until the end of the season. But I will say this: you didn't see those kind of mistakes from De Gea yesterday, and you also saw a goalkeeper who, I mean, that's not his regular defence in front of him, and that's a big step for a goalkeeper to go from that in 72 hours, to go from a European embarrassment to a FA Cup semi-final at Wembley, and to go there with the composure and not look like making a mistake, because there was never any time. I mean, the Brighton fans played it up like ooh, but he never looked close to making the same kind of errors. And it is about, we've talked about this so many times on this podcast, it's about combinations of players who are around you, who are responsible for, giving and receiving passes. They've got to take care in everyone around them. And that's, I think, been a big problem with United over the last 7 or 8 years, is that you don't have enough players like that. De Gea, obviously not one of those players. And he stepped up yesterday. He was fine in the game. Lucky at the end where I thought Mitoma could well have been sent off for the lunch run. But he still got up and got on with it. Yes, didn't save a penalty. And I was looking at him thinking, how's he going the right way for some of these? And doesn't even look like he's going to save them. But
we could call that a Peter Shelton moment.
Yeah, maybe.
He was always that one. He went the right way every single time. The problem was he got nowhere near the ball.
We've got to say though, he did make 2 great saves in the game, and he played really well. And his composure helped the defence, which was Lindelof and Shaw. Let's say it again, he helped them be settled to be able to play their game what they were comfortable. To keep Brighton, who have scored plenty of goals against really good teams, to keep them goalless. Everyone in that defence deserves a lot of credit for the performance yesterday. This isn't standards dropping, saying, "Oh, United, these come respect." You've got to give respect to how good Brighton have been this season. They were coming into that game full of confidence, and then you've got to expect that you're going. There were people in the game going, "Oh, United are playing on United are playing on the counter attack. This is pathetic." It's like, have you never watched a game of football? Do you think that it's all the first 25 minutes? The game of football is however long it's going to take to complete. It's, but they do it, people, it's just reactionary these days, isn't it? They comment in the game. They've made observations in the game that they're going to write teams and managers and players off. And thankfully, United got through it. And Brighton, I'm going to say again, they played very well, and they will come out of this game thinking, and they did. They were saying it after the game. They felt the better team lost. They're entitled to think like that. It was a tight semi-final. I don't think it's necessary. I think it's a bit bitter to come out saying that, because they didn't do enough to win the game. But it's what it is. And United are in 2 domestic cup finals for the first time since, Paul, do you know when the last time United in
94?
Yeah. And in that one we won the FA Cup. So let's hope that it's the first time in history that United win 2 domestic cups, because obviously it was mentioned earlier in the comments. I'm not going to talk about it today, but the prospect of Manchester City with treble is something that's sort of crept upon a few people. Let's hope that Real Madrid ends that before we're forced to have anything to do with it. But yeah, certainly add some spice to that occasion. You said earlier, Paul, Thursday could be the defining day for United's Champions League qualification. If not Thursday, then certainly by this time next week. United play Villa on Sunday. If United get 2 positive results out of the next 2 games, I'm not mathematically done and dusted, but barring an incredible turnaround, because a lot of teams still have to play each other. United are fairly comfortable now because of what happened at Newcastle yesterday. Spurs are next for us on Thursday. Defeat at Newcastle suggests very vulnerable. They made a terrible tactical decision earlier on to play with a 4, considering they've been playing with a 3 for so long. Not that they've been brilliant defensively in a 3, but they were, I don't even know how to describe the first 20 minutes. So you would say, well, they're still fairly vulnerable, low on confidence, but it is the perfect game for them to get a reaction. And I hate saying that, because it's one of those things we often pull out. Are the perfect game for a reaction, but they are. That's what they will serve to be. They'll be looking at them saying, United have got the vulnerabilities. They'll be tired after 2 hours at Wembley. What are you expecting to see? Because obviously you follow Spurs closer than most because of being a boyhood fan of them. You've got a little bit of interest in them. What do you think we're going to see on Thursday?
I believe we'll see another United win. for the simple reason, I mean, I was there against Bournemouth, and the fans are walking in negative, and I saw the Bournemouth game. Bournemouth totally outplayed them. Not totally out. Well, they were. Tottenham were on the counter attack most of the time. They found themselves in front. They was in a winning position, and they failed because they weren't good enough, and they got totally found out by Newcastle. I mean, I was watching it in bits go when I was kind of working. I was watching it, and I've been saying it for ages. If you're going to play with Eric Dyer as a sweeper, then you've got a big, big problem. And the problem was like coming to fruition from the fact of too much power, too much strength, too much pace. He just can't deal with it. He's just not good enough in that position. And he's a midfield player gone backwards, so God knows what's going to happen next. But the fans are gone in a much smaller way. The fans are digging out Levy and the owner who lives in the Bahamas and digging them out as well. But you look at Spurs and you look at that. I don't call it a stadium. It's a venue. It's an incredible, incredible place to go and watch a game of football. Everything about it serves everybody at all levels, and you cannot complain about anything. It's an incredible place. But the football is poor. They're playing. I mean, I believe it, and everyone keeps saying to me, how can Spurs sack their manager but yet have his sidekick, who's been his sidekick for a long time, still there? And virtually everyone is saying he's still in his ear. And the reason why I can't deny that and come out and say that's madness, it wouldn't happen, they wouldn't go that way, is that the way Spurs are playing. They're still playing the same system. The same players are still playing regularly. Normally, someone new coming, if Ryan Mason was to take over, which a lot of people just want him there because they see him as Spurs, he's growing up from a kid as a Spurs player, he's now a coach, been a coach there for a long period. They'd rather just have him to the end because they believe he'll do something different and he can see the faults. Everything's the same still. So that suggests to me that he's still speaking to his long-time working companion. And that now is what's grating the fans more than anything. So the moment they go on that pitch, Spurs, they're in serious trouble from their fans. United go and attack them straight away, score that first goal, and then it's good night Vienna as far as I'm concerned. There's nothing there at all. There's no fight in them. They're a team that are lacking individuals with it. A number of their individuals haven't got heart, to be perfectly honest.
Well, I hope that your bullish confidence is proven.
But remember, I'm saying it. Someone who's watched them a few times, someone who lives in with a lot of Spurs fans around. I'm sure Jamie O'Hara will go really all in at them, but no one's interested in listening to what he's got to say about it.
I don't expect you to be quite so bullish about United's chances against Villa, who've been so good under Emery. Completely different team to how they were under Gerrard, as we know, because we unfortunately had to we dealt with them and they were magnificent at Villa Park. They've been so good. Outside chance of Champions League football, and that's their their chances hanging on United having a collapse. So Sunday's a chance to put that to bed. I mean, I'm not one to say that a draw is a good result at Old Trafford against Aston Villa. And I'm not going to say it here, but you want to kind of keep them arm's length and as long as you avoid defeat. Say if we get a win against Spurs and we get avoid defeat on Sunday, then you would sort of say that that's too far a mountain for anyone to climb. So I'm not saying a draw's a good result. I'm just saying that that's the kind of equation that puts Villa up, because you'll expect that they'll defeat Fulham. I think they've got Fulham at home in the midweek, so feels like a fairly routine game for them. But in so much as United know that if they get 2 wins in these next 2 games, they push all out for it, and it makes the end of the season a little bit more comfortable for them. Do you think that you're going to see that kind of effort from United in the next 2 games?
I believe so, because I think there is a lot of players who are having to push a bit, really in theory for their careers, because if they just think they can coast through and be Manchester United players, I don't think it works that way. Or they can believe it's good. there might be ones who think, oh, it's all over. I know I'm going somewhere else. That's it, and go through it. But all you want really, you're looking for him to be playing the players more now, the ones he wants there for next season, or the ones who are honest enough to want to prove a point to earn the right to be there. And if that's going to be maybe, Mr. Marmite in Weghorst, then you play him because you know what you're going to get. The rest of it, you can maybe shrug your shoulder, but at least there's going to be honesty out there. You're hoping that certain I'm hoping that Varane can be around and maybe even just available for the Sunday, so that puts pressure on people who are going to lift themselves. But the two centre halves, I don't think you've got any problem there. You've got no problem with Lindelof in there. The bit that still worries me is the front three. There's just no consistency in the front three at all. It's just, unless, again, I say it and I keep repeating myself, unless Marcus Rashford scores a goal, you're not getting anything there. You're getting no great threat. He ties himself in knots trying the most difficult of things rather than keeping it basic. His strength is to control pass move, get the ball in front.
His best moments yesterday were the complicated moments, like when he teed it up to Eriksen. He just waits for a second, plays the pass, and then the frustrating elements were, like you said, trying to dribble through like 2 or 3 players at once.
It's just not good. He's not good enough to do it. It's not his strength. His strength is people find him in space. He can pin someone down 1-on-1, go past them with space, or you put him. He tries to run in behind and go 1-on-1 with a keeper. That's his strengths. The rest of it, combination play. Generally, he fails. And it sounds a bit harsh, but I sit there and I watch games. I scrutinise. I do everything. And people will say to me, but his numbers, stats, that's what all these people say now. It's a new hip thing to say in football. But I watch 90 minutes. I don't look at stats to tell me someone's played well, because stats lie. Stats, they can make you really bad or they can make you really good. And if you just watch for 90 minutes and you watch what they do, you have the normal scouts who go and watch games of football. They will tell you about a player rather than someone who's a scout who uses numbers. If you're going off numbers, go to a racecourse. Go to a racecourse and pick a winner. Simple as that.
Well, one thing with Rashford, though, what you mentioned about the combinations, I think it's probably fair to say that, not that I'm into giving players excuses, but at least if you said numbers, at least he's contributed goals and he's contributed a lot.
I'm not doubting that, Wayne, at all. He's definitely done that more than anyone else. But I still look for more. There's more. Over the years, United have had great goal scorers, but they've had more in their game. They've had more in their game, a lot more.
Do you think that maybe, just putting it out there, that's down to the fact that Martial and Sancho have been so poor? Because you've got to build combinations with those players.
No.
And in pre-season, it looked like it was going to come off, but it did look quite good against Liverpool earlier in the season. But then, ever since then, Martial's been out, and then Sancho's had to spell out, and Martial's come back, and he's not looked good, and Sancho's struggled. And if you've got that kind of, because Martial and Rashford have usually been good in tandem, and they've not looked good since the turn of whenever they've played together recently. It's not looked like the combination that it used to be.
No, I don't think so. I just think he scored goals, Marcus Rashford, and like Ten Hag has said it, that it needs someone else. He needs someone else to score goals. Even Sir Alex Ferguson has said it as well. He needs someone else to score goals. Great sides do not rely on one goal scorer. It doesn't happen that way. Goals come from everywhere. We've seen City go through their moments when it was all about, and they struggled. That's when all of a sudden he's tweaked it and he's managed to virtually work his way round that situation. But United have been about, York and Cole, even when Van Nistelrooy, a greater goal scorer as he was, other players were chipping in as well, scoring goals. Wide players, everyone was scoring goals, and there's no one else there. Martial just never looked like he was going to score at all. Anthony had one opportunity, but there was no weight, no strength on the shot he had. there isn't anyone there who you would turn around and say, I think they're going to score because they're always knocking at the door. There isn't anybody really there. I don't think Marcus Rashford had a shot yesterday. If I look at it, if he did have a shot, it wasn't on target.
No, I can't remember one. And I
No,
think he
didn't
take either of those, did
and
he?
and you look at Brighton's midfield. Our back four had to really, really work hard. Really, really work hard. Their back four didn't have to work as hard. Didn't anywhere near having to work as hard. And it's Manchester United v Brighton. That's wrong.
Yeah. Patrick makes comments along that line here. He says, "Good morning, gents. Good morning, Patrick. Hope you're well." He says, "I have to agree with Mr. Parker on Rashford. It's difficult for people to be truly objective on what they see on the pitch versus the headline numbers. If Rashford's scoring a hatful of goals, then it's gold. Without goals, my concern is how is he impacting the game in terms of general play, first touch, crossing, first team, crossing for teammates, etc. I always ask myself, are opposition defenders feeling like they've been in a tough match?" And yet, I think he could make that case yesterday for sure. But I come back to my point on it, is that I wonder if it makes it easier for defenders to deal with Marcus, because the other two, well, not Anthony so much, but when Sancho and Martial are on the pitch, that they're not really causing the problem. In fact, they're not, at least Berrios makes himself present, at least Anthony makes himself present. They're causing visible issues for defenders, and maybe being another step forward in the summer, hopefully, you'll see more from Rashford. We don't know, but at this moment in time, he is the one scoring. Generally, he's the one scoring the goals, and it's the better problem to have out of problems that they've got in the front line, which could not prove costly by this time this week. Paul, you were confident enough to declare or insist that United were going to be two still this week.
Wayne, I was really hoping after the game on Thursday. I thought oh no, and then we've done that, and even yesterday, I was still, it's going to get mentioned again. I just thought myself, just pull it to bed. I wanted you to pull it to bed, Wayne, but you haven't.
No, but I'm only bringing it up to ask you for this week. I don't like making you make score predictions, but do you reckon that by this time next week we'll be talking about United being very comfortable in the Champions League spots?
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Skeptic says yes.
Rory says, "Do we go all in on Thursday against Spurs to wrap 4 up? Would be 9 points clear and 2 games in hand, or do we start trying some faces?" Paul, I can pretty much guess your answer to that is going to be just keep going with a strong side, right?
Yeah, I would say so. I can't pronounce it. Is it Pedestri? Is it right?
The right wing.
But yeah, given how poor and inconsistent we've been in wide areas, I think he deserves a start. Honestly think Garnacho got his start. I don't see why he hasn't had a start, and I just think there's something about him I like, and I just think maybe to give him a start. When you look at what you're getting from Sancho on that left-hand side, you've seen what you get from Martial when he plays through the middle. I just think nothing any of them can go knocking on the door to the manager and say, "Why aren't you playing me?" I would give the young team, the young lad, the opportunity. In a team that's come back, went low, it's got themselves back yesterday somewhere, got a lot back, a lot of respect back from the fans. And I just think now to bring him in would add a lift to the fans as well, to see a young lad come in, especially coming to a game against Tottenham, which is always going to be a great atmosphere, always a big occasion at Tottenham, even though there's a lot of people who have said they're not going to watch Spurs anymore. So it'd be interesting, where those tickets go to. Could be given to, become like a family, given to school kids, because I know there's a lot of people not taking on the tickets. So I think he's worth a run. He's been around a lot, and I do think so.
Yeah, I think you could be right. I mean, there was a period in the game yesterday that Anthony played from the left, and he might be looking at that and think, put Anthony on the left, Rashford through the middle, put Palestri on the right. So yeah, it could definitely be something that it looks like it needs a freshen up in there, and that's something different.
Yeah, I mean, anything we see. I mean, if every time I kept looking at that telly yesterday with the Spurs game, Newcastle just beat them with energy. And if you have, and if you and Wayne, I want to take, but you look at that Spurs back three, back five. They're so slow. They are so slow. There's nothing there. They've got Porro on the right hand side, who's going to cost them about 40 million. We works out. Not great. No great. Not doesn't really want to go back on the other side. It was who is it? The Croatian.
Yeah.
I've forgotten his name. Is it not Popescu? He played for Chelsea. I've forgotten his name. But he's not full, and he's not a defensive one. So there's great opportunities for the wide players to get. There's going to be so much space in the wide areas, but you have to attack it quick, not dilly dally. Just drive at them. And if you get a Romero, he will give fouls. He'll give opportunities for penalties. And you can run off of Dyer all day long. He's a bit like Harry in a way that the moment he knows he's not going to win it, he fouls you. He gives away so many fouls all the time. They're so vulnerable. Midfield flat. No playmaker. Skip and Højbjerg in there. No playmaker. After every Spurs game, I always go up to a box after. I go in the box with. I'm not name dropping here, but I go in there with ex-Spurs, proper players. Graham Roberts, Paul Miller, Mickey Hazard, Glenn Hoddle, Ozzy Ardiles, Pat Jennings, always in there. And normally for about 20, 30 minutes, I'm in there waiting for everyone to disappear so I can just jump on the train home a bit more easier. And they talk about that Spurs team out there, and they are so disappointed. So disappointed. Just by what they're seeing out there. There's nothing out there which they like at this moment in time. And I can't say what some of the things that they say, but all I'm saying is they're players that from different eras. I mean, I played with Ozzy at Queen's Park Rangers for 4 months, and just hearing him talk about what's going out there, and when someone like Glenn Hoddle says there's no creativity in the team, there isn't many players who can actually come out and say that, and you'll turn around and say, you come out and say, yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah. He's definitely one qualified to talk about that. They might be disappointed. They would have been definitely disappointed yesterday, but if Spurs treat us to the same kind of performance on Thursday, then there'll be a few happy Manchester United fans for sure. We will be back next week to talk about those games against Spurs and Villa. If you've enjoyed watching the podcast, give us a like and subscribe on YouTube and like on Facebook. Feel free to comment if you're watching the replay as well. If you're listening back on the audio podcast, be sure to subscribe and leave a review on the platform you're listening on. We'll be back next week, guys. Stay safe, stay well, and thanks for listening.